Built it right, built it strong, built it fast, built it done, built it true, built it real, yeah, I built it.
All right, what is going on, everybody? It is a very windy day here in Idaho. Boise, Idaho, a massive windstorm blowing through today. Got dust in the air, getting blown sideways, but here I am doing the walk and talk because, it's kind of about grinding it out, right? You just gotta stick with the program. It doesn't really matter. Rain, shine, sleet, snow, windstorms. Are you gonna do what you're gonna do? My father-in-law calls that being a donkey in the hailstorm, right? You got a goal, and you're just gonna put your head down and be a donkey in the hailstorm. Just put your head down, deal with it, put up with it, and get it done. So today I want to talk about the Tower of Babel and how that relates to work and projects for teams, okay? So if you remember and I promise all of this does connect. So if you remember the Tower of Babel story in the Bible, you have the world and its political powers all unified, building this singular tower called the Tower of Babel. And God comes down and sees that the nations have gathered and all of the tribes and all of the people are unified. And essentially what it was to say, hey, we got this. We are able to do things on our own. And so God caused a confusion of the languages, and that confusion of the languages did something that is very interesting and that we'll be talking about today, which is it caused the peoples to scatter. It caused them to disband. It caused them to disperse. And why that is, makes a lot of sense. If you can't speak the same language, right? If you're not speaking the same language, how do you work together? If you're not able to be unified in the way you go about explaining what you're working on, how can you be productive, right? And so if you think about it, the Tower of Babel was just a massive project, right? It was a civilizational project amongst a large group of people, and everything was going great, right? They were being very successful, so successful that God actually himself realized that humans could do anything without even needing God, and that they themselves would view themselves as little gods, lowercase g, and said, hey, we're going to disperse the languages. That will cause them to scatter. And it did. That's what I want to think about with you today, is how when you have a team of people working on a project and you're speaking different languages, I don't mean language in the sense of English versus Spanish versus Arabic. No, I'm talking about you're speaking different languages in the sense of the way you're describing what you're working on versus what your friend over there or your teammate over there is thinking they're working on and the way they describe it, right? Because if all of you think you're working on the same project or working on the same thing, but you're describing it completely different, you have a different understanding, you have a different language, you're gonna have problems, right? Your team is gonna scatter. You're not gonna be able to effectively build together. So today I want to talk about solving the Tower of Babel problem, right? Solving the Tower of Babel problem when it comes to team projects, right? So let's give an example maybe. What's a good example? I got one. You have a manager who says something like, hey, I think it would be great if we got this new guide or new operating manual done. And in the manager's head, they're thinking, yeah, I just told my team that this operating manual needs to get done. So let's get it done. But they didn't set a deadline. They didn't specify what done meant. There's They didn't allocate to who exactly is on the hook for what, right? There's no clear directive. So let's say a month goes by and no one on the team brought it up, because why would anyone bring it up? They're not asking for more work, right? They're keeping their heads down. And the manager hops on the call and says, hey, where are we at with the operating manual? And no one replies, right? No one has anything to say. Crickets, right? People are quiet. And the manager gets frustrated and starts telling everybody that this should have been done 2 weeks ago. Why is everyone ignoring them? What's wrong with you? Name calling, maybe incompetence starts to become a commonly used word. You guys are incompetent or whatever. What's going on there? Well, we got a language problem, right? The manager didn't know how to effectively communicate to his or her team on how to go about this project. And what more, the team didn't know how to help the manager explain it, right? Because who's really at fault here? Well, some of you might say, oh, it's definitely the manager's fault. The manager didn't, they're just coming in. Who knows, maybe the manager just got off a call with the vice president, and the vice president told them to do it, and now they're telling their team to do it. And the manager, they haven't even thought about exactly what that even means, much less the vice president, right? So maybe you're saying, hey, it's the upper management, the middle management, definitely their fault. And then they could say the same thing. Well, it's not our fault. Your job is to execute. So if you are lacking something to execute, it's your job to tell me what you need as the manager or as the vice president, and then I get that done, right? It's your fault that you didn't clearly identify your needs. So that's an interesting case study, right? Because there's a little bit of blame to go around, but where do you put your blame? Well, maybe it kind of depends on who you are in your day job, where you fit and all that. But the story is meant to be illustrative, which is saying everyone's at, to some degree, the blame. But that's only because no one knew how to effectively communicate about this project of getting this operating manual updated or written, right? And if you don't have an effective language, an effective way to communicate your needs or what you need done or a project, how are you expected to be successful, all right? I want you to do a thought experiment with me. I want you to try to imagine living a whole day with your roommate or your parents, your spouse, your family, whoever it is you might live with. Maybe you don't, maybe you live alone, but you got a bird or a dog or something. But you go a whole day where you cannot communicate, right? No speaking, maybe you know sign language, no sign language, no communicating, no body language, right? No, not even gesturing. And try to do anything with that person, right? Try to make breakfast. I always go to making breakfast. I love breakfast. Breakfast is like my favorite meal of the day. So you're trying to make breakfast together, but you're not allowed to communicate. You're not allowed to talk to each other, no hand signals, no pointing, no gestures, no nothing. How effectively do you think you'll be able to do anything, to build breakfast together, to make some food? Yeah, good luck. I'll talk to you in a couple days when you're both starving, right? It's not gonna go well. Chances are what's gonna happen is you're both just gonna do your own thing, right? You're gonna give up on trying to cooperate and try to coordinate. Why? Why would you give up, right? Well, because the amount of energy to do coordination without the ability to communicate isn't worth it. It's too hard. So you're just gonna say, you know what, cooperating, working together on this project is just too much work. It'd be better for me to do it alone. It'd be more effective for me to make breakfast by myself. And so you do, and it works. But there's an important lesson there, isn't there? The lesson or the moral of that story is to say, a lot of times in life, we're working on projects too big, too big, too complicated, too much work for one person to go at it alone. And yet, we still don't have an effective way to communicate to each other. So you're in a bit of a pickle, right? You're in a bit of a pickle because you don't have a good way to talk about how to get projects done. So you end up having to communicate, you end up talking past each other, you end up not being able to understand each other. You're basically speaking different languages, right? Have you ever been on a call where you genuinely feel like you explained exactly what you wanted and the other person's like clueless? They have no idea what you're talking about. That is a real thing and a real frustration for all teams everywhere, right? It's not just you. Managers feel that way. I mean, everybody feels that way. So what do we do? How do we solve the Tower of Babel problem, right? If you don't speak the same language, you're gonna disperse. You're gonna fracture, you're gonna fragment, and everyone's gonna go do their own thing. How do you bring people together? How do you get them to cooperate? How do you get the coordination costs low enough, cheap enough, so that working together makes sense? It's more effective. It's just a better deal than working alone, right? That is the Tower of Babel problem. That's how I'm gonna frame the Tower of Babel problem. So this is my pitch, right? This is my thought, my proposed solution. I was tempted to do a Donald Trump impersonation on this solution. That'd be the best solution, but I'll withhold. So let's see. The proposed solution is something like this. If you can speak the same language, you can build together. It's that simple. If you can speak the same language, and I don't mean speaking English. I'm talking about if you can speak how you want your project to go, and they speak the same language, right? Let's call it team projectees, right? The language of team project development. We need a code word for it. Building ease or making ease, I don't know. I was trying to be clever. It's not coming to me. But anyway, if you can have a same language, a same way of developing or expressing how you want projects to be built, be done, the way projects need to operate, then you are off to the races, right? Because if everyone, imagine everyone on your team, imagine every single person on your team having the exact same understanding of how projects are to go on your team, in your company, in your organization. That every single person knows how to communicate the same way and express themselves using the same terms, the same language, the same ideas when you're working on a team project. Imagine that. Imagine the power that that's going to give you. Furthermore, imagine that those people on those projects then can have your back when you're forgetting something, when you've overlooked something, that they're able to express using that same team project language, that same vocabulary, that same grammar, to be able to say, hey, you know what, boss, you missed something. We have not done, we've underspecified, right? We haven't done enough specification work on detailing out this project plan because of the scope of what's going on here. Wow, imagine how powerful that is. So let's go back to the manager example, that frustrated manager example, who felt like they communicated to their team their desire, that they really wanted an operating manual updated or done, and yet their team did not hear it, or they didn't actually understand, and no one acted to help resolve the ambiguity. All right, now in this circumstance, let's say the same manager, but the team is all unified on this language, this vocabulary of how projects work. So when the manager comes in, the team is able to say something like, okay, boss, what is the scope of this operating manual, right? This is how much time our team has. This is how much, these are all the other projects we're currently working on and are assigned and responsible for. These are the deadlines that we have for them. And so whatever the scope of the need for the operating manual you're presenting to us is, depending on when you need it done, this is what that's going to look like. If you need something next week, we're only going to be able to do X. If you can wait a month, we'll do Y. And if you can wait 6 months, we can do Z. Boom, clarity. Or they can say something like this. Okay, if you need that, if you need Y, but you need it done in a week, then these are the additional resources we're going to need in order to get that done. Or you're going to have to get these other projects off our plate. And the manager can say, you know what, that's fine. I'm okay with missing that deadline on that other project, right? Just having those simple understandings, vocabulary of how projects work enables your team to, on the fly, describe how the project needs to work immediately. Or imagine the other way, right? The manager is able to know this vocabulary and think it through. So that when they come on the meeting, instead of saying something like, hey guys, I really want this operating manual done, so you guys are gonna have to figure this out, this is what I want, and then loosely hand gesture at it, they're able to say, hey, you know what, I looked at our project portfolio, Alan, I know you got a lot going on this week. I'm gonna pull you off project A because I noticed that you have a couple weeks of wiggle room until that deliverable is due, and I'm gonna reassign you to this so that you can give your full attention to it. Because I really need this done, and then actually hand him a spec sheet, a sheet that specifies exactly what the deliverable needs to look like. Holy cow, that is powerful. And why do you know how to do that? Because you all function. You're all functioning using the exact same vocabulary, the exact same mental model, the exact same language of how projects work, how team projects function, right? Around the structure of them, what they need to do, and how to get stuff done, right? You all share the same map of projects. Okay, so that's my pitch on the Tower of Babel solution. And really what I'm trying to get at there is we're gonna undo the Tower of Babel when it comes to team projects. We're gonna undo it. We're gonna use a unifying language, a unifying vocabulary, where everyone speaks the same or is able to have the same ideas, and that is gonna enable us to stop talking past each other. Because at the end of the day, your team isn't underperforming, right? I'm thinking about this. Your team isn't underperforming, they're just under-equipped, right? Think about it. Your team isn't underperforming, they're just under-equipped. And why are they under-equipped? Because they don't know how to communicate. Right? There's no course in college, there's no class in high school that teaches you how to communicate on projects. There's nothing out there that's gonna teach you that this is the language of how to launch projects, of how to do things. There's maybe, dozens of different tools and tricks and softwares and software as a service kind of companies. There's Kanban boards and doing, done, in review, etc. But none of these to-do lists, none of these glorified to-do list tools are gonna help you when it comes to a structured vocabulary, a structured way of thinking about and doing projects. At the end of the day, a lot of these just assume that you just write out 1 trillion to-do lists and you just do them all and the project happens. Well, that's not a grammar. That's not a language, right? A grammar has rules, right? A noun and a verb are required for a sentence, right? Language has rules, and that's what you need. You need something with rules. You don't need longer to-do lists. You don't need more tools in the sense of software tools or more sticky notes, right? That's not what you need. What you need is a unified vocabulary with rules that give you the structure you need to do projects within your team. That technology, if you want to think about it that way, is the solution to build, right? Anything. And that's what I'm saying is undoing the Tower of Babel. Or that's my thought on the solution to the Tower of Babel problem, which is this idea, again, of when people can't speak the same language, they can't build together. So I'm gonna stop it short here today just because the wind is just so crazy. literally getting blown sideways at certain points. And I'm really curious if the audio is even able, you know, they have these little windscreen socks, but I think I'm putting it to the test today. We will see if it's able to, to put up with what I'm throwing at it here in Idaho. So, all right, hope you all have a good day, and I'll catch you next time.